Welcome to Recogs, the inventory success podcast where we discuss how the top operators source, manufacture, finance, and sell their inventory in order to create successful businesses. I'm your host, Mike Gelb. I'm the community manager here at MFD. MFD, we help SMBs manufacture, finance, and distribute their products in order to create wonderful, thriving businesses. Today is Amy Zitelman, who is the CEO and co-founder of Soom Foods. Soom Foods is a trusted brand for premium, silky smooth tahini paste and tahini products. In conversation, we explore how Amy discovered the opportunity to create a premium tahini paste business, also her approach to different sales channels, particularly food service, which we haven't covered as much on this show, and restaurants, even sell into these groups. What's also quite interesting about selling into these groups versus selling into wholesale and retail outlets, and also balancing these two big sales channels for her. Well, in addition to D2C. Without further ado, here's Amy. Amy, thanks so much for joining me here today. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Starting from the very beginning, what was the aha moment that led you to founding Zoom?
So this was back in 2011. I was a senior in college. My oldest sister Shelby had a business degree from University of Pennsylvania, and our middle sister Jackie was living abroad and ended up marrying a guy in the tahini industry. At the time, they were dating, and as we got to know tahini here better through Omri and through my sister's relationship, my older sister Shelby had pretty standard kind of entrepreneurial questions like why isn't tahini more popular in the American market? What tahini is available, and is there a play at this as a business? I think also because both of our parents are entrepreneurs, that entrepreneurship kind of runs in our blood. So when we were met with an opportunity, we decided to give it a go.
So, what was then the first step? You saw like a bit of a market gap there, not understanding why tahini was popular in the US. What was kind of the first step in terms of creating your own?
Yeah, sure. So what we found when we started doing the market research were a few things. One was that most people had no idea what tahini was. Actually, Mike, how familiar are you with?
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it's great.
Awesome. So that has come a long way since 2011. But for those that are unfamiliar, tahini is an ingredient made from ground sesame seeds. It is probably most familiar in the American market because you use it to make hummus. So that's the second thing we realized was that if people were using tahini, they were really only using it to make hummus, whereas a high quality tahini is versatile for so much more. And the last thing was that if they were buying tahini, they couldn't name the brand name that they were buying. That is something that we heard from customers, consumers, chefs, even grocery store clerks. Like there was just really no brand affinity there. So the first thing we did was try to understand the supply chain, especially being a single source commodity. Most of our sesame seed still does. And back then, it all did come from the northwest region of Ethiopia called Humera. And so my sisters and I went to Ethiopia for the first time to better understand the culture and supply chain there. We spent a lot of time in Israel, of course, that's where my sister lives and where most of our tahini is still produced. And we really worked on the building blocks of that supply chain, like understanding who would be manufacturing our tahini for us, and then laying out a small business plan of how we could import it and distribute it here in the States. So I sat down and made lists and lists of restaurants and grocery stores, ice cream shops, smoothie shops, cafes. I mean, I still believe that tahini can be used anywhere and everywhere. Most of those places that I probably wrote down 12 years ago still aren't buying tahini, or a lot more of them are these days. Tahini has come a long way in the past decade, but it was really very simple business plan foundational exercises at that point.
What was it like? Because we kind of found this with some entrepreneurs where they feel like they like perfected a product. They want exactly what their types of condiment, sauce, bar, what have you. They'll go to a manufacturer and it's actually a lot more complex in terms of actually what they actually want in terms of having that product where the margin structure, for example, makes sense that actually it can scale. Was that at all an issue that you already had to run into?
I mean, margins, of course, and the idea of pricing for scaling is always an issue, no matter what I think anybody's selling. But no, this is different. I mean, we didn't perfect anything. We found something that was great. We were introduced into a supply chain that existed. I mean, tahini has been made for thousands of years at this point. We are far from the people that discovered it. And